see here. Welcome, everybody. This is our Lunch and Learn. Glad to have you joining us. As always, if you've got any questions, please, if you could put those in the Q&A, all right? And if you have any logistics, can't see the screen, or where is she? What is she showing? Go ahead and please go ahead and put your chat there. Let's see here. And we do have a poll. If you wouldn't mind, everyone out there just trying to get a read of the room. Talent search. Are you here for talent search? Are you from EOC? Or are you from both? If you wouldn't mind going ahead and answering that. And I think everyone's answered. So we have 65% talent search, and then EOC 20%. And we have some people that are here for both. So I will try to give the appropriate time to each one. So I'm going to, I probably will give too much time, more time to talent search. So I'm apologizing ahead of time. So you see the results there. Thanks, Donna, for sharing that. Again, I'm Lisa Redamozo with Nosotros Education Center. This is just something we wanted to do. And it helps us as well here at NEC to go ahead and meet and share some information, answer some questions during our lunch break when we can talk about the proposal. That during during federally funded hours, we cannot be working on federal funds to do that. So it's got to be during lunch hour, after work, or on weekends and holidays. Just to remind y'all, Monday's a holiday. You probably already know that, been counting the days. So we won't be having our usual lunch and learn at that time. But, I'll probably be working on proposals, and probably that might be it. I hate to break it to you, maybe a good chance to catch up on where you should be with your proposal right now. So I'm going to open it up right now. If anyone has any questions, go ahead and please post those in the Q&A. And I've got with me, Teresa Thompson Pickney. Thank you, Teresa, for being with us, and she will be moderating. And also, I field some questions over to her. She and I have been in trio for over 30 years now. She's went through Talent Search and some of the other programs as well, and has managed, I think, Teresa, all of them, except you mentioned Veterans Upward Bound. And I think that's about it. She also has done Gear Up, so she's very, very knowledgeable. I also have with me Donna Walls and Leah Walls, who have anything you see that's all this great setup that you see, and organizing everything. Couldn't do anything at all without them, except just pop up here and say a few words. But they're also monitoring the chat. We're going to put into the chat throughout the session today links, to the Google Drive, where you should have received a link anyway in your Zoom email, but just in case of the materials that we've gathered, some free resources. Also, right now I'm showing you should be seeing our group feed here that Donna and Leah have been working on. It used to be called the forum, and now it's a group feed, and it's a way for us to communicate with people writing their talent search proposal that are NEC clients. So if you are under contract with us for proposal development, technical review, and even data collection, that's one of our services that we're trying to promote. I mean, if you feel, I've got this, I can write this or review it, but I need someone to help review the data I've collected from my needs section for both EOC and Talent Search, to let me know if it's enough need, not enough need. Talk about strategy and tips on how to pull the data that shows the most need. That's our data collection services. That's on an hourly rate, so check those out. You can go to our shop, and we've got all the breakdown right there. But if you're one of those clients and you have access to, you will get an invitation to join this closed for clients only feed, where I'll be posting specifically about the competition. Anytime I hear something, anytime you have a question on demand, it'll go there, and we're going to create a community there of folks working and writing on the talent search proposal, as long as you're an NEC client, and we'll put resources there as well. I'll continue to do these lunch and learn, of course, and share some of those resources, but I needed to have a way to communicate very quickly with all my clients. So that's why we developed this sub forum here, or a group. Okay, so let me see. I think we might have a question here. When are you expecting the EOC grant proposal to be due? Okay, so on the EOC grant proposal, in the past, it's been a month after talent search has been turned in. If I'm thinking that talent search could be due, again, speculation, maybe at the end of September. So I'm thinking EOC the end of October. I could be totally wrong, but that's what we're planning on. And I'll show you that when you look at the timeline. So Sarah, if you go into the EOC folder for the Lunch and Learn, you'll see a timeline that I'll be sharing here in a little bit. And in that timeline for both Talent Search and EOC, we were planning for both of them to be, you know, in our mind internally, due at the end of September, but they usually are not due at the same time. EOC, correct me if I'm wrong, Teresa, but EOC is typically, or let me know if I'm wrong, EOC is typically a month after talent search. I can't remember if it was ever a month
Yes.
before, right,
It's
Teresa?
after. Yeah, it's definitely about a month after. Yes.
Month after. And I could be totally wrong, and it could go back to being due, you know, with all these delays, it could go back to being due where it has been traditionally, which is the last time it was due. I think it was due at the end of February for end of January, I think, for talent search, and end of February for EOC. So it could be that late. But we're preparing and getting ourselves mentally set as though it's going to be due at the end of September, both of them, but they won't be both due. In in reality, the EOC one will be afterward. Could you give us an elevator speech on what the EOC provides and the potential benefits of submitting a new application? That's a great question, and I'm going to be completely honest. It's not that I'm trying to discourage anybody for going for new funding, but let me tell you, EOC, since I've been in TRIO, has been the hardest program to get funded brand new, the most difficult program to get funded brand new. And that's because there's less of them than there are talent search, okay? And there's less money set aside. And it's always been super competitive. You know, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and it wasn't, Teresa. I mean, I've been helping people that have EOCs already get refunded, okay? Because they have up to 15 prior experience points, okay? So if there's anything wrong in the proposal, they have a little bit of an insurance policy, right? But Teresa, I've only gotten two. Just this recent funding cycle, I finally got two new ones funded. And I don't think it's going to happen again, y'all, because of the lack of, it's just that there's not enough funding for everyone. And we just had something similar happen with math and science. You know, math and science upward bound, there's not that much money set aside for all the applications that came in. And so a couple of our upward bounds that were brand new, math science, had a perfect score. Perfect. They scored a perfect score, and they didn't get funded initially because they ran out of money. Now, later on, they were able to get them funded down the slate. But I think besides that, and again, what you need to do is forget about everything I just said about how hard it is to get funded brand new and have a perfect score without any prior experience points. The number one thing you want to do is to do the budget, and you will see what, you know, difficulty it is to get an established a new upward bound funded, because you won't get funded if you don't put 100% director. And you got to have at least 2 full-time staff. That's 3 full-time people to serve at a minimum 850 students a year. Plug that into a spreadsheet and put in how much your institution will require, or agency, that you pay that director based on HR regulations. And then plug in the advisors and how much you have to pay, and also plug in fringe benefits. And this goes the same for talent search, y'all. If you're going for new talent search funding, brand new, I know they say, well, every funding is new. Yeah, but you know, if you're going in with 15 prior experience points, a a world of difference. Plug in the personnel salaries and the fringe, and there's only a certain amount you can ask for, and you can look in the 2021 RFP or program application, which I believe is in the Lunch and Learn folder, and you can see, I forget what pages it's on, 66 or 67 is what I remember, and it tells you specifically what you can ask for. Now, granted, you know, with the climate going on right now, I doubt Teresa, they're going to increase that money, or maybe they'll go with what level funding for brand new programs, maybe a little bit more money. Do the budget, with 3 full-time staff, and you're going to realize that the money that you're going to get if you get funded will only be enough to cover personnel, and that your agency or your institution is going to have to pay for the difference. The same thing with Talent Search, y'all. You know, the same thing with Talent Search. So it's about the budget. There's not enough money. We've always needed more money to serve that many students, okay? And to have that much staff, the staff that you need. Okay, so it is both Talent Search and EOC, unfortunately, are money pits. Your institution or agency has to be committed to putting money into this program, even if you can scrape by the first year due to salary increases. And my insurance went up, you know, just 16% from one year to the next, my medical insurance. And we're never going to get a 16% or a cost of living, what do they call it, increase. Definitely not nowadays. We are going to be very lucky to survive and also maintain level funding. So what's not going to stay level are mandatory raises that your agency or institution has to plug in, and also medical and retirement benefits are going to go up. So the money is going to run out, or you're going to have to shift and pull from supplies and student services to every year on an annual basis to put into salary. So you got to have a plan to provide direct funding, because now for Talent Search and EOC funding, if you're starting out new, you're going to have to use institutional or agency resources to make up the difference. All right. Now, the benefits, you know, may be a hard sell to your institution or your institution right now, if you're college based, for both Talent Search and EOC. Because, you know, they're looking, money is tight, and would they be willing to not only provide the oversight of indirect, but also direct funding to a program that doesn't necessarily, you know, it can't be officially a recruitment program, you know, for the college. And sometimes I've heard clients tell me, well, their college has said they need to spend the monies they have directly on students that are, you know, directly on their students, not potential students possibly. So someone says, I direct an EOC program. Our main goals are to, yes, admissions for, you know, for it's college, career, financial aid, information to adults over the age of 19. And they support non-traditional adults. Yep. And they work with agencies, prisons, and use that. So thank you for providing that. But I wanted to talk about the money first to let you know what could happen there, and just to be upfront on how difficult it is, because we don't have enough money to provide such a great service. Okay, it's more than just talent search for adults. You know, it is also specific services and dealing with specific populations. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And I wanted to make sure you do your budget right now before you even start collecting your data, because you could do the budget in about an hour, and it will let you know, let's move forward. Or you may at least find out how much money you'll have to get your institution or agency to provide this program on an annual basis. Someone says, I missed the last 2 lunch and learns. Apologize if this is repetitive. Given the proposal cut to TRIO funding, my institution is hesitant to move forward with paying for a grant writer. How can I provide some certainty that Talent Search and the EOC competition will be released? You know what? You really can't at this point. I think it's whatever I can't repeat what I put in that post. I don't know, Donna, if you could is there any way, Donna, you could put the narrative of maybe that document, or just send folks over to the blog post, provide them. And you know, in a way, I agree with them, you know, but it doesn't mean that you can't start working on the data collect. There's a lot of things that you can do right now, and you'll have to do it on lunch hour or on weekends or after hours, is to collect the data. And applicant and community support, you can, in a way, getting those letters of commitment and talking to people you could say that's a programmatic feature. And if you look at programming activity, if you look in your current proposal and your applicant and community support section, the first question for both EOC and Talent Search, you're explaining how you're going to inform the target area, the target, you know, schools or GED programs, residents of the target area about your program. All right. So start doing that. A grant writer cannot, and they really can't collect all the data for you that you need. You need to be there locally to do, especially with EOC. Um, 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 and with Talent Search, there's some things you have to go and speak to people at the target schools, and it's very difficult for a grant writer to do that. I know it. That's why we put in our contracts that the client is responsible for the data collection. We gather, we assess it, we can help troubleshoot. We convert everything into the narrative, but that's pretty much their responsibility. Number, you could do the budget right away. You could start on the data collection, and you can maybe you got to do your budget anyway for next year, so that can be something you can do on work hours. You applicant and community support, look at what's already written in your current proposal while you go out there and make outreach and get your letters of commitment ready for next year. You can also at the same time ask them, well, by the way, we're going to be in the process of writing a proposal. Could you think about this? But you've kind of gotten your message across of what you're supposed to be doing anyway, informing during the years of funding. And so that's what you could do. So now we're down to the data collection. The data collection is probably something you need to do on weekends, lunch hour, and after work. So get started with that right now. And I understand the reason I was referring to the blog post that we just did a little while before we went on air here with y'all is it kind of gives some Q&A. It gives you additional information that feeds off of what COE put out on the 15th. And that could be something that may or may not make them feel better about doing that. But definitely, it doesn't mean that you all cannot, everyone on this call cannot do the budget in Excel and start the data collection, and then go ahead and start connecting with your folks on your campus and also in the community to touch base about what's been going on with your programs right now. Oh, and then mention, oh, by the way, spend like 90% of the meeting updating them on what you do, what you have done, and then just 10% on your way out. Oh, and here's a MOU or letter of commitment. See if you can do that. But those are three big things that when we find out, hopefully things are, going to, when things will be released, then you won't be starting at nothing. Okay. You'll have a lot of it done because that's a lot of my headache is those three areas: budget, applicant community support, and the data collection. Okay. So that's the best I can do. Plus we're going to put in the blog posting or in the link, the blog posting that may be helpful. What do you think would be a compelling dollar amount for institutional commitment for an existing EOC project where equipment and furniture has already been in use, or should I include all of it? So again, it's not so much on the compelling dollar amount. In fact, some institutions or agencies are very nervous about putting a dollar amount for their in-kind value, of some equipment. They said, oh, we don't want to do that. Could be an audit. Now, I try to tell them, well, look, it's not matching money. Funds like grant Gear Up requires matching funds, and there's some other types of Department of Ed funding that requires matching. Like for SSS, they have to match if they don't have a waiver to do student grant aid. Most do have a waiver, but that's matching, so that can be dollar for dollar, whatever, very specific. So I have a combination of clients that say, oh yeah, they don't mind if we put estimated in-kind value. So there's no real compelling dollar amount. Just make sure that your agency or institution is okay for you to label things as in-kind value. And equipment or furniture has already been in use. Well, as long as you didn't purchase it and it was donated to you by, or the institution or agency allows you to use it, you can still claim it. I mean, the only thing you really can't claim is anything that you purchased with EOC or Talent Search funds. So I hope I'm answering that correctly. Again, you want to make sure that this information is, also in some sort of letter of commitment from your college president. You don't have to go running around all over campus to get everyone's, okay with this office and this office. Your president or whoever is the head person there in charge of the institution should be able to give you, their one letter of commitment, but make sure these things are summarized not only in the grant proposal, easy for the reader, but you may want to, make sure before it's turned in, make sure your president signs off on it. And sometimes you could do a short memo and attach the, the table that you're going to put in the proposal and basically saying, you okay with this? Because this is what we need to, provide. And the other thing is when you do your budget, that'll kind of tell you where you need to be, where if you haven't already, where you need in black and white, you can show somebody there, your PI or wherever department you report to, or needs to approve this. This is where we're going to run up with a gap. We won't have money for an admin at all. So if you're going to give us any if you have, any money set aside, it would be great for a part-time admin, or we need supplies. And you can put the dollar amount if you want to there. Now, whenever you do that, keep in mind that um, that becomes a commitment, then they have to provide. Okay, that they're expected to provide it. So that's why the applicant and community support section, you can't make, not that you would make it up, but you can't be like, oh yeah, say you'll do this or you'll pay that, or they'll pay for all our computers, right? Okay, great, we'll put that because we don't have any money in the budget right now because I had to pay for staff and all that. So where it says computers, it's a zero, but I'm putting the narrative, please note the college or the agency will be providing this much worth of computers, right? So, okay, so that's covered. Well, guess what? Moving forward, let's say in your first year, you don't have all your staff in place at first, or, it's difficult to hire staff and keep them on. Let's say you have carryover and you want to use some of that carryover to buy those computers because now we don't have those positions weren't filled. So we have this carryover. You won't be able to use that carryover to buy those computers because your institution said they would buy it. So it can't replace the institution's commitment, even if you have funds available for what otherwise would have been an allowable cost. It becomes unallowable or non-allowable, whatever you want to call it, if your institution has already committed to providing you with those resources. Okay. So no real compelling number, but just decide and find out, is it okay if we put estimated in-kind value? And it could be for stuff that you've been currently using, as long as you didn't pay for it. Okay. Do we have any other questions? I think we have some things going on in the chat. Okay. What have you heard regarding progress on Trio? Okay. So yes. Oh, Lynn, you've heard it's been suspended? Can you fill me in on that? I don't know if it's been suspended. I haven't heard that. Did something come out this morning while we were talking? Let us know. I don't know if they suspended. Did they say postponed or something like that? So let me know. Teresa, have you heard anything about that? Can you find out from your sources that it's been suspended?
No, I haven't heard that. I'm gonna check while we're on the call.
Check with your sources. Check with your people. Teresa knows people. She won't even tell me who they are, but she knows folks. So let's see if we can confirm that. And Lynn, if you've got some information about that, please let us know. That would be great to let us know. All right. So again, let me share a couple of things here. Let me see if I can bring it up here. And let's start with the talent search timeline. And Dawn, if you could let me know if there's any questions, but I'm going to switch over to the timeline. And I know it says March. This is what we've been doing on since before March, but once we figured out that this would be probably pushed back until the end of September, we are starting with March and of items that we need to get started. And, like I've been saying before, and this is very similar to for EOC as well. This timeline is in the Google Drive. There's a folder for EOC. There's a folder for talent search. The timeline is there. So in March, we told folks start collecting the target area and schools data that demonstrates need. You don't need a grant writer to do that. Y'all can do that. Okay. If anything, look at the proposal from last time in 2021. Look at the data that was collected there, and you could use that. Or for those of you that have attended our grant writing workshop, we tell you exactly what data to collect and give you, a spreadsheet. And then the budget. Draft year one budget based on the 24-25 funding minus any carryover. So whatever you're getting right now in both EOC and talent search and how many people you have to serve right now, stick to that as though there's no increase and start drafting the budget. But this is the difference. A lot of us have carryover. So exclude that carryover. Look at your budget that you would have received minus anything carrying over from the previous year and start drafting your budget ASAP. Okay, this drafting of the budget for both EOC and Talent Search should not take you very long at all because it's not that much money, especially when you don't count the carryover, and see what you have left. Okay, see if, as an outsider looking in, does it look like you can pay for everything and cover everything? Begin collecting the target school data. I mean, definitely, this is something that should have started already. I'm just being honest with you. It should have started already, but you're not behind. It's just that, especially with Talent Search, it was better to start while the schools were in session so that you could try to communicate with folks to get some of the missing information or some of the information you couldn't get from the websites that are public information. Like in Texas, we have the Texas Higher Education Agency. We also have the we have the Texas Education Agency, and then we have the Texas Education Higher Education Coordinating Board. We get information from that. But sometimes the information we get from those websites aren't showing need because of the definitions they use. So then we start bugging the people at the target schools. Well, they're not going to be there this summer, right? Or rarely. So maybe you've got in with a counselor where you can, communicate with them during the summer. But now we're pushing getting some of that critical information off until school starts again. And they're, let's be for real, they're not necessarily wanting to completely available, at the beginning of school in August to help you with some of this information. In April, or catching up here, drafting those applicant and community that section from before. Y'all can, on your lunch hour or after work or on weekends, pull up last year's applicant and community support section and start updating it. You could, if when you read it, it's going to say, or actually, I'm sorry, your plan of operation for both EOC and Talent Search. Let me restate that your plan of operation, the first question there is asking you the plan to inform the target area. So follow that plan. And as you're following that plan, get updated letters of commitment and MOUs left off there. It says begin collecting those. Okay. These things might take a while. They might have to go to school board meeting or go through the superintendent's office. It's not as easy as it used to be before. You also wanted to start collecting needs assessment results, from your target schools or from your agencies that you're talking to, where you kind of give them a survey or getting quotes from target school administrators and faculty to show the need. Okay, to stress, you want to tell the reader, isn't this terrible, or isn't this such a gap, or there's such a high number of students that are not graduating with completing the rigorous secondary school program of study. Okay, I see the numbers, but what's the reason why? And it's very hard for you, as if you're writing this, to just say, well, the reasons why are X, Y, and Z. Says who? It should come from somebody there at the target school, or even from the Talent Search or EOC director and the advisors, what they've noticed or that they've seen. And it becomes, their professional, how should we say, experience as to why. Okay, it doesn't always have to be to an official website, but a lot of these quotes need to come for from somebody that works there within the target schools or with the GED centers if you're EOC, right? So of course I'm collecting the quantitative data, but the why, which doesn't have to be very long at all, but to keep the reader, like, okay, you told me this, so tell me a story. I see the numbers. Why is that going on? Well, you need to get someone there locally to give you a quote as to why. And if we saw this, all these quotes, all of us from all across the country would be like, yeah, we have the same reason too. Okay, it's probably the same across the whole country, but I can't say national data says, or this what nationally known website says, everyone in the country is facing this. No, it has to be about your target area. You understand? For example, someone had mentioned to me, oh, you know what? I found some information stating that for our counselor to student ratio for the state is really, it's so much higher for low income students attending target school or schools in low income areas for the state. I said, that's great for the state, but you're not serving the whole state. You need to get someone there at the target school to say, oh yeah, that's exactly what we see here as well in our community. So something that's going on the state level, possibly you could use as a talking, to start talking to your talent search and EOC contact people that are at the schools or at the agencies. And you could say, well, I have this information here that for the state, they're saying this is the case, that all low income areas in the state or the school districts that serve communities that are low income are struggling to, with this, student to counselor ratio. Do you see that happening here? And you can say, oh, yes, I totally agree that this is happening here as well. So you see, I've got to tie it into what's going on locally. You don't want to use state or national data as your reason why things are bad at the target area. You can use it as a way to get someone else there to say, yeah, it's that way too, or it's worse here because of X, Y, and Z. Short and sweet. Okay. That takes time, that going back and forth. That takes time. So that's what needs to be starting, now or, as soon as you can, or collect your data so that when school starts up again, you've got just the qualitative pieces and quotes that you want to get, because now you have the data and you can say, look, the data we pulled shows this, that only 30% of the students from this high school go on to college. Can you give me, in a nice way, not accusatory, but can you give me some, we think, and sometimes to get people started, well, we've seen it's because of this and this, would you agree? And they would say, oh yeah, I agree. And they take it someplace else, they take it to, they give you more, not someplace else, but they give you a little bit more information. And that would be very, very helpful. That does not happen overnight. The rest of the proposal, if you had to, you probably could crank it out in a weekend. I don't recommend it, but you want to get those pieces, the budget, the applicant and community support, and the need section, so to speak, on the burner, starting to cook those, because they will take the collection of data. They will take a while to cook. You can't start cooking those three sections or baking them at the last minute. They've got to start now and continue to work and cook in the background while you update everything else and or develop everything else. Okay. So in May, and June, and could be for Talent Search and EOC too, we are working on the quality of personnel section based on the budget. Whatever positions are listed in the budget draft, I got to make sure that I speak to those required minimum requirements. And also I've got to work on that section now on how we're going to look for folks that have similar experiences to those Talent Search and EOC eligible participants. And Teresa's been helping me on reworking that just to make sure that it does comply with the executive orders, and it doesn't speak to preference or anything related to that. And so that's still a work in progress, but we started weeks ago, going back and forth where we can communicate, and I've got to look at it, see how comfortable I feel with it, that kind of thing. That used to be a section that was a done deal for me. Oh, we got that covered. No, this time it's going to be a little bit of a headache, right? Also your plan of operation. It's so big and massive. I love working on the plan of operation for both Talent Search and EOC because it gives you a chance to go ahead and update and put into things that you want to start this September. You don't have to wait until the grant comes in. And one of those is the first question, the plan to inform the target area or the target schools or anyone ages 19 and over. So that's where you can start using or update it and realize, oh, I'm supposed to be connecting with some of these folks now. And what better time to also, at the very end of our meeting, mention that we'll be writing, and if they could update this MOU, or we could get an updated MOU or a letter of commitment. All right. And then again, we're looking at the data we've collected so far, and start drafting the needs section for both EOC and Talent Search. And then June, draft the evaluation plan section and the logic model. Try to wrap up, if you could, the data collection with quotes and survey results that have come in finalize the applicant and community support section, finalize the quality of personnel, just your drafts. Then in July, finalize your plan of operation, finalize evaluation plan, finalize the budget section based on your, if, when we get our GANs, to find out, oh, we got a little bit of money, so let's bump up a little bit money, and it's just going to be, won't be a lot, if anything, maybe it's the same. And then see what we work on very last is the objective section. Okay, because this is assuming that we've got all our data collected for the data section. Now I can talk about the objective section. Okay. And then August, utilizing that to finalize the needs section, finalize the objective section, and then draft the CPPs. If I should put here, Donna, if, after the RFP comes out, I'm not getting bothered with them. There's no rhyme or reason to mess with the CPPs and worry about them until you get the final RFP or program application. Okay. And then that's when we get that. You finalize the proposal, finalize CPP's table of contents, abstract, finalize the GEPA process, the form, the program profile, program assurances, and other submission documents. So the minute, that comes out, you should be using, when it comes out, that is like, how you're in a marathon and they say, okay, they're running or they're racing cars. And then what do they say? Don't they say this is the last, okay, now this is the last row or the last run around the track? That's when the final RFP comes out or program application comes out. It should be like, okay, you should have all this stuff drafted. And now we're looking at the details. And now we've got what, either 45 days, possibly 45 days. The more it's delayed, the less time they'll give us. So you want to have every ready. So you have 45 days just to fine tune things, to look at how many pages it can be, to look at the CPPs and develop those and see where you can sprinkle it throughout your plan of operation if needed, or your budget. But really you're wrapping stuff up. You are not starting the process. It's like, okay, this is the last lap. Here we go. You got 45, it could be 30 days. I think they're supposed to give us 45 days. But anyway, and I know we started here in March, so if you're a little bit behind, okay, but do me a favor, start your budget, get that budget done, start your data collection, and start getting those letters of commitment, MOUs that's in your plan of operation that you're supposed to be going out there connecting and informing. So you're informing, but you're also, oh yeah, by the way, here's the letter. And I think we have templates of letters of commitment and an MOU in both EOC and the Talent Search folders. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Anything come up? Okay, so what I'm going to do is,
Lisa, I have an update on
yes.
what was talked about. So basically, this is not anything new with what's said here, but I want to clarify. Basically, the blog post that you sent out today, which Donna actually put into the chat right after this question, is where everyone can find more information. So I want to clarify the part about what are we hearing regarding progress on getting Trio back in the budget for 26-27. In that memo, COE does speak specifically to what we should be doing for that particular piece, because it's based on the president's recommendation to Congress. However, Congress decides whether or not to honor that or to continue to fund TRIO, which is a normal process in our government. And then the second part, more concerned now that SSS competition has been suspended. So based on COE's last correspondence, it has not been suspended. Basically, what they said is the lack of spending plan in the fiscal year 2025 continuing resolution. It appears that all movement to finalize and issue the grant awards has halted, but that's not necessarily saying that they have been suspended. It's just on hold until and they're saying it appears that way. So they said it appears that it's been halted. However, that doesn't mean that it's been suspended. But all of this is in the link right below that Donna sent out. I mean, that Donna pushed on the chat. All of this information is in that document if anybody wants to read, be up to date as to where we are. But there's been no new developments as far as me and my resources know of at this point.
Thank you, Teresa. And also, we responded, or we kind of followed up on the COE May 15th Q&A, and that's what the blog post basically was also stating. Look, right now the money's there, but no one is given the trio people, the trio office guidance on, can we start releasing the GANs? So more, especially for the upward bounds that have the June 1st start date, the money is there, but they haven't been given the guidance when to release the money. And so that also impacts, well, the SSS competition. Um, that's the way, we tried to break it down in a manner that I can understand it. So hopefully the breakdown that we did, because people are starting to ask about that, So it's there, but they have not given them the okay to release it. Correct, Teresa? That's the way I'm reading it.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. So let me go ahead and show something else here. Let's see here. Thank you, Teresa. Let me go ahead and also show the spreadsheet. Okay. And oh, it's under here. Okay. All right. And I'm sharing the spreadsheet. This is not in the this is going to be possible in the group, but this is being videotaped, so you can always go back and look. This is a spreadsheet, if you want to get, I'm sharing this information, but the actual spreadsheet y'all won't have access to. So unless there are any other questions, and again, it's about talent search, but I also want EOC to realize how this can impact y'all. Regarding, and it's kind of out of order here. I'm going to have Halen probably put it in order, but you can see the spreadsheet, and it's a way we're collecting scores where folks for the 2021 competition have lost points. We're asking them to send it to us, and we go ahead, or they can upload it here. They don't have to identify themselves. They can either send email at info@nosotros, the scores where the places in their proposal where they've lost points and the reason why, and we're collecting a spreadsheet so that we can learn and share, insight on where people lost points. So let me go to something like applicant community support is both essential to, this would be relative or appropriate for both EOC and talent search. So let me go to that just so we have both. Okay, let me bring that up. So FYI, you can get 16 points on your applicant and community support section. And this one entry only received 12 points. All right. So the question is, and this is very similar to both Talent Search and EOC, resources secured through written commitments from community partners. An applicant that is an institution of higher education must include in its application commitments from community organizations. So, for Talent Search specifically, also, if you're a college, you have to include letters of you must talk about commitments from nonprofit agencies, community-based agencies. Okay. Now, if you're an agency like we were through the Boys and Girls Club, I'm supposed to, in addition to the target school commitment, I'm supposed to get commitments from, colleges and higher ed, post-secondary education institutions, not necessarily other agencies. So you have to be careful with that. So if you're with a talent search and you're a college or an agency, there's a specific difference on who you have to get those letters of commitment from. But we both have to get them from, and commitments from our agency president or board of directors, and the college from their president, whoever is in charge of the college. That should be there, and you should state it. I know I would take away a point if the grant didn't say that they have a letter of commitment from their president or board of directors in place now. Okay. And then, of course, I would take away points if they didn't show me the commitment listed and mention that there's a letter of commitment or MOUs from each school district or principal, whatever the setup. And depending on whether they're an agency or an institution, I would be looking to see if they had commitments from the appropriate colleges or agencies, that kind of thing. Okay. And I would look for that. And I would look for I would look to see if they mentioned a letter of commitment. Well, here, these folks And I think, yeah, let me see. I'm sorry. Let me move this over here. They lost how many? They lost 4 points because the applicant indicates that commitments from the target school districts in the form of MOUs, and this could be for EOC from GED centers, have yet to be documented. Without such documentation, it is unclear whether these resources have actually been committed to the project or whether the level of commitment may change. It is unclear to why the applicant has yet to obtain these commitments in writing. Similarly, the applicant indicates the letters of commitment from community organizations have yet to be obtained. 4 points not awarded. Why? And I remember this now. We went back and read it, and it said the X, Y, and Z college will obtain letters of commitment from the target schools. And it said later on, XYZ College will obtain letters of commitment from the community-based organizations and have them on file. So because it was written in the future tense, I don't know if they were going for new funding or they were existing and they're just saying, we're going to get these letters. They lost 4 points on their, and now they have to have been continuing because they didn't lose their funding, but they got 4 points taken away. So if you were going for new funding, you would have lost 4 points and not been anywhere near consideration of getting funded. So as simple, the thing of actually saying we will get the letters will cost them. You need to say, we have the letters, we have the commitment in place now, okay? And I'm going to learn from that definitely, because on a lot of our proposals, we are saying in the present tense, oh, we will get this, we will get that. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. So it's a quick way to lose points moving forward. Okay. Let me see the time. Okay. Here's what, this is something else that Teresa's been helping me with. In the plan of operation, okay, both EOC and Talent Search have a plan of operation. This one proposal lost 2 points in the plan of operation. And again, this is on something that normally is not an issue, you know. A timeline, shoot, been almost using the same one for the last 20, almost 25 years. So the last question, you know, it mentions, you know, that's the first thing, the plan, including timelines. Okay, well, on this response was that the timeline does not clearly show the staff responsible for completing each identified task within the specified time frame. Okay. The time commitment the project director will make to the proposed project is not clear. And this is double whammy. According to the applicant, and this was not our part. Now, I know we had a very vague time commitment. I mean, a very vague timeline, and that's what we've been working on. The perfect combination of a timeline that's not 5 or 6 pages long, right? And maybe can fit on a page or a page and a half or a page is very, very hard to do. So that may take some time to put it in a way where it gives enough information for the reader. I thought what we were giving, which is like a quarter of a page, was enough, and it wasn't. I broke down all the major programming components and I put check marks as to what everyone would do. And I put a time frame, but they didn't like that. And that was across multiple proposals, not just one. So I know I needed to make that work. All right. But this other part here, according to the applicant, the proposed project proposes to employ a full-time project director. Okay, because that's part of the plan of operation where you give for both EOC and Talent Search, you give the reader a breakdown of what your staff structure will be. So they said there that they would be a full-time director. However, the director is shown in the line item budget, which is further on, and a company narrative to have a 50% commitment to the proposed project and a 50% commitment to UBMS. So this person will split between Talent Search and UBMS, which is okay to do. You still probably will lose a point because you're not a full-time director, but if you're existing, you know, once upon a time we're new and you got permission to split, you stay split. But what happened here was they didn't make it match. So in one section, it says they have 100% director. And then when they noticed in the budget, which is a very smart reader, that reader went back and compared and said, the budget says 50%. This is contradictory. So it is therefore uncertain if the part-time commitment in the leadership role is sufficient to ensure the effective administration of the proposed project, given the responsibilities associated with the position. So those are 2 points not awarded. Okay. Another place where folks lost points, the quality of personnel. Okay, in the section that they could have received 3 points for this part of the question, which again is very similar for both EOC and Talent Search, the qualifications required of the project director. The educational requirement for the project director is not firmly established. For example, a master's degree is preferred. However, the minimum educational requirement is not clearly articulated. Now, I don't have the response here to look at it, but they lost a point mainly because they did not say the master's degree is required. Okay. And there's no regulation for it. I know that. I know that you can't find it, but this is something that for many, many years, and I've lost $1 million. I didn't get one of the EOCs way back that I tried to get. I lost 1 point on this brand new EOC for an agency. It was over $1 million mistake because I put a master's degree is preferred and not required because I thought it's EOC. There's not a college degree attainment objective like there is for Talent Search. It's an agency in a rural area. If I put that they require a master's degree at that salary in the budget, they're never going to find anybody. So I was already acting like I had the money, right? And I was looking for someone to hire, right? So I went ahead and I was too for real and put master's degree is preferred. And that was the only point taken off that grant. So I know that they had to go back and reread it again and say, you know what? We don't have enough money. Look at all these newbies. You know what? They didn't require a master's degree. It's preferred, point off. See, I was being too realistic, right? A nonprofit agency in a rural area, EOC, right? Well, what I should have done is I should have gone ahead and put that we were going to require a master's degree and at least, hope to get funded. I would have gotten funded and then we could have tried the search. And when it didn't work out like I knew it would, then I could show my program officer in DC, look, we tried, we're not able to. Could you please approve for me to change it to master's degree is preferred and not required? Because look, I already tried. So anyway, I should have gone ahead and left it alone to say master's degree required and then fought the good fight, to make it happen. And when it didn't happen, I would have documentation to request changing that. Okay. So let me see if we have time for a couple more that are relevant to both. A lot of needs section issues here. Here is something interesting here for Talent Search on the needs section. We have to talk about one of the things we have to bring up is the high ratio of students to school counselors. And they lost 1 point because in 4 of the target schools, the ratio of students to school counselors is at or below the national recommended rate of 250 to 1, which by the way, they should have lost a point just to compare themselves to the 250 to 1 recommendation rate. I lost points on all my Talent Search programs grants 1 year because I compared the ratio to the recommended ratio of 250 to 1 or whatever it was at that time. And they said, no, you cannot compare actual ratio to recommended amounts. It should have been actual to actual national rates. So I learned that lesson. But on top of that, they didn't catch them for that. See, I probably would have taken off 2 points, right? I mean, because it happened to me. But look how the reader has been told to not just look at the average of all the target schools, but that each individual target school on its own has to be, above that ratio. It's not just the average. And they've been told to do that with all your other tables in the needs section, right? So each target school has a show need on its own compared to national, state and national actual rates, not recommended rates, and as well as the average. So when you're doing your data collection right now, that's going to tell you who you possibly, if you can, might have to leave out a target school. But again, if you only have one target school, then, you're stuck. Or if only 2, you're kind of stuck with that. So anyway, what you need is time to make some decisions and to think about some other ways to bring up need that might, maybe it's a rural school and the counselor actually is not full-time because they work full-time, but they're split between middle school an elementary school. So really, there's not a full-time person. They don't have 100% time and effort at each, you know, at each school, so to speak. They might be split across. Okay. So let me bring up, I think that's most of those there.
Lisa,
Just want to bring up. Yes.
I think there's a question in the chat. I don't think you've seen.
Okay, let me look at that one. What other staff positions, support positions do I put in Talent Search grants used for staff that do mainly office management, but also do assist students and family services? Do the budget. When you do your budget, you will soon realize you should not, when you have to pay people what you think they're going to get paid in 26, 27, and what your fringe benefit rates might be. So I add a little, you know, maybe up to 4 to 5 percentage points on fringe. I don't think, unless you're split, unless the director is split, you may have maybe money for a part-time administrative assistant that's split with some other program. You may have money of what also could be acceptable is to have a data entry person. But there is no money unless you're split with other, and you're combining it with other programs from the, you know, and not initially, if you're going for new funding, I don't see where you can afford it. I don't see where you can afford that. So, so I've only been able to have an admin or administrative assistant part-time when I was split with other programs. So, you know, I know sometimes people say, well, we have someone who's an admin, but they also help with services. You know, I mean, what you should put project advisors, and part of their duties and responsibilities is to enter data into the database and create the student files and run reports from the database to manage their caseload. And so that way the focus on the administrative part becomes part of the project advisor, rather than have a position that is an administrative assistant also providing direct services. I wouldn't recommend that. And unfortunately, the director, like Teresa, you know, when we started together, I was the administrative assistant, the database entry clerk, the director, and I had a caseload as well of some students. And I know probably in your experience, I don't think you've ever been able to have a dedicated admin unless you were split, and you were split where you were at, I believe. So you have experience with splitting, but not starting brand new. Okay. So anyway, let's see here. So again, I wouldn't, you know, I don't see any monies being set aside for those positions. If you can find it, let me know, and I can offer some titles and stuff, things like that. But as an outside reader, I'll never take a point off if you don't have an admin, but I will take a point off if I see that you are down to one advisor and a full-time admin and a director. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, you need another person. You know, EOC is 850, you know, students a year. Most of them have to be, you know, are brand new at minimum, and Talent Search 500. You know, I'm thinking I need to see more direct service providers, less administrative, and that actually should be absorbed by the director. If they're already existing, well, you must have an existing grant, and you've already merged. If you're already in place and you have positions that are already, how should I say? These are, I'm imagining, I can't get into the details right now, but let's say I already have 3 TRIO programs, and there's a part-time, there's an administrative assistant across split. If you're split, you have to stay split, okay? You have to stay split. So you should be able to, I mean, again, I would rather you keep the admin part separate and not mix it up, because then you're going to have to prove that they have, you know, probably you could lose a point because they look at their educational requirements and wonder, well, do they have a bachelor's degree? I would just keep it simple. I would just keep them as an admin, even if in reality you have them doing that, but don't sacrifice direct service providers for an administrative assistant. Okay. I got you, Sarah. Okay. Our community is very small and rural. Some schools have solid counselor ratios when compared to state federal numbers, but the rest of the stats are below the state level. What do we do about the counselor ratio? The schools need the extra support. Okay, number one, are you existing? Okay, if you're existing and you want to, an existing talent search or EOC, I'm thinking talent search, you want to go ahead and maintain, funding. This could be where you have to be okay to lose a point and be okay with it. Or you could do what we do, like a Hail Mary, is that we go ahead and we specifically ask at that rural school, is that counselor split with the other schools? Like the high school counselor, does she also go or he also go to the middle school and the elementary schools? Then they're not 100%. So they don't have a one, they're split. So number one, that's one way. Another way is to ask the counselors through a survey what percentage of time and effort they're spending on college, career, and financial aid information. Okay, what percentage of time? And then you can try to put that in there and say, well, according to this, only this many counselors are spending more than 50% of their time doing that. You can do it in the definitions. It's a Hail Mary, but if you leave it alone, you're going to lose the points. This is a way to try to save those points. So, I mean, they go by the numbers. You still may lose the points, but if you leave it alone, you definitely will lose the points. If you go ahead and try to make try to kind of explain why, because it's rule, they're not really there 100% of time, 100% of the time, or they're doing other things like scheduling, disciplining, testing, then they're not really 100% of the time, you could give it a shot. The state and federal counselor ratios are really high. Well, I know, and you need to be higher than them. If you're not higher, and it's not a fair question, I know, I get it. But if your schools do not have a higher ratio than their comparison, then there's the math. I mean, there's no choice but to pull points off. Even if I didn't want to, I'd have to say, no, you don't show need in that area, unless you go ahead and give me a definition as to, oh, actually, we don't have any full-time people because they're not here in the building full-time. They're split against 3 other schools, or we don't have anybody that's 50% more time or effort working on just college, career, and financial aid information, or spend more than 50% of their time doing that. Okay. So hopefully I was able to answer some questions. I know we are close to, yeah, okay. So we're watching daily basis. Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry about the, waiting for those GANs. I am hopeful too. I will be watching and I'll be bugging Teresa too. She knows people, and somehow we get information. As soon as we get it, we will let you know. We're hopeful that they'll come out soon and that, things will move forward. So thank you all for joining us. Remember, next week, no, yeah, go ahead and do that. And next week, no lunch and learn, but all our videos are going to be posted on our YouTube channel. Okay, there's a playlist that Donna's created, so please go there. And if you've missed any of these meetings or want to look back on something, and check out our services that we're providing. Come on and join us and be a client, or at least hire us to do the data collection. That's a small investment in case you're worried about, your institution doesn't want to commit too much into the funding part. Okay. So yes, Lynn, if a counselor has both, yes, they're not full-time, dear. I mean, they could be full-time, but Lynn, they are not at that in that school. They can't be in 2 places at the same time. So although they may be full-time, their time and effort is not full-time. So you don't really have a full-time counselor there. They count as 0.5 maybe at most. So check that out, okay? Thank you, everyone. Have a great week, okay? Thanks, Lynn. Anything we do to help, okay? And we have the channel there. And for the 2 weeks from now, if you have any questions in the meantime, go ahead and ask, send us an email, and I can, discuss those. I'll answer right away, but then I'll discuss them during our next lunch and learn. Thanks, Donna. Thanks, Leah. Thank you all so much. I'll end the meeting now. Thank you.